Hey, future weapon enthusiasts. Nick Young here, CEO of Desert Tech. I'm here to talk about our Quattro 15 semi-automatic lower receiver kit and our Infinity 16 fully automatic rifle. Both of these rifles utilize our quad stack magazine technology and provide a substantial advantage and overmatch to a standard 30 round magazine rifle. We're going to first talk about the origin of the quad stack magazine, as well as the features and benefits that it offers to end users. Before we get into the nitty-gritty details of our QMAG 53 and our Infinity rifle, like the video and subscribe so you can get more great content like this. The concept of the quad stack magazine originated during the NGSW rifle program. We participated in this program and we developed this 6.8 PCP rifle. We have another video where I get into a deep dive detail on this rifle in particular, so if you want to watch that, I'll link it in the description below. But in this program, contracting officers mentioned that they desired a box-fed magazine that was 40 or 50 rounds in capacity that would allow them to replace belt-fed weapons because of the slow reload speed of a belt-fed rifle. So it got our brains churning and got me really excited about the concept of a quad stack magazine. We didn't want a double stack magazine that was a big banana theme that complicated prone shooting. And so we went to the drawing board and started doing concept renderings of quad stack magazines. Unfortunately, we didn't get down selected in the NGSW program, but we thought that this was still a great idea. And so we set out to design a quad stack magazine for a 5.56 rifle. When other quad stack magazines didn't succeed, how are we different? Well, we're different because we designed the magazine to be reliable first and ignore the rifle. And then after we had a reliable magazine design, we then designed the lower receiver of the rifle to accommodate that magazine. All of the other competition designed their magazine to fit a constrained rifle geometry, but we didn't want to have to suffer the complexity of 4 columns to 2 columns with nested followers, and I think they have like 5 something springs in there. So when you look at our design, ours is simple. The easiest way to make something work is to figure out how to make the design as simple as you possibly can. We kept the design simple. We use a single follower, a single spring, and an anti-tilt follower with plenty of clearance between the ammo columns and the sidewalls to be able to have very minimal friction. So it has less friction between the sidewalls than a standard 30 round magazine does. When we set the design standards for this new magazine and rifle, we recruited an advisory board. And some of the members on this board were world-class 3-gun shooters, former military schoolhouse military trainers, contracting officers, and they helped us put together what we felt like would be the perfect and ideal parameters for this magazine. One of our primary design goals was to keep the same form factor as a standard 30 round mag. And so when we did our quad stack magazine, we wanted to ensure that it had the same length or less than that standard 30 round magazine. And as you can see, our quad stack mag ends up being a little bit wider, but the form factor is the same. It's very easy to change. It's very comfortable to grab. It's not a ginormous, drum magazine that doesn't fit in any pouch and is very cumbersome and heavy on the weapon. These quad stack magazines, on the other hand, fit in standard double stack mag pouches. So you don't have to buy new pouches. Second, we wanted to be able to have a 210 round loadout in 4 magazines instead of 7. And so that ended up making the magazine capacity be 53 rounds. The next design goal is we wanted the overall weight of a loadout to be less than with standard magazines. And so by having a quad stack magazine that fits nearly twice as much ammunition, requires less materials than separate magazines. And at the end of the day, we ended up being 8% lighter on this standard loadout kit than a standard 30 round mags. The next design goal is we wanted this thing to be as reliable or more reliable than standard 30 round magazines, which was a pretty impressive goal to achieve. And we were very focused on dirty debris and suppressor gases entering the magazine and still being able to be reliable. As we tested other 60 round double stack magazines, then when you fired those magazines with dirty suppressors, it took about 3 cycles for the magazine to jam. And so you shoot a whole mag, reload the mag, and on the 3rd cycle, every single magazine would jam on the competitors' quad stack magazines. And we didn't want that. And so we made appropriate clearances throughout the magazine to ensure that we had very minimal wall frictional surfaces. And at the end of the day, when we tested the number of cycles our magazine could go without having any malfunction, we made it 12 cycles before we had a minor stoppage, which we easily cleared by just racking the bolt, and then we could continue to fire. Ironically, we did the same test with the MagFull Gen 3 PMAG, and it had a stoppage after 8 rounds. And again, that actually just took a simple cycle of the action to clear. But 12 magazines at 53 rounds versus 8 magazines at 30 rounds. So this had exceptional performance with debris entering in the magazine. Another design goal is we wanted this to survive drop testing, loaded, partially loaded, and empty. So we pitted our magazine's drop test durability against the PMAG, the Lancer, and standard GI magazines, and ours outperformed the other magazines by a substantial margin.
If you drop your magazine on concrete, will it still fire reliably? The QMAG 53 was dropped 15 times from 5 feet, 5 different angles, empty, half full, and full. A total of 15 drops onto hard concrete. Even after all that, the QMAG 53 functioned normally. Other magazines did not. The QMAG 53 was then dropped in a rifle. Other magazines either broke apart and could not be reassembled or were damaged such that they could not fire.
Didn't feed the round sitting in the front there.
The QMAG 53 was easily reassembled and it fired reliably. It was the only magazine that survived all tests and functioned reliably.
Initially, we wanted to use translucent materials to be able to see how much ammunition remained in the magazine. The issue is the translucent material options that we had were not strong enough to endure the drop testing regimen. And so we settled on a black polymer that is very, very strong. One of the design requests that we received from our 3-gun champion was to make a longer internal magazine length, because with standard magazines, when they shoot their match ammunition in competition, then those longer cartridges actually rub on the front of the magazine and it can jam during their competition. So with our 4-column wide magazine, it actually gives us a pretty decisive advantage because we have our 2 columns of ammunition, and what we did was we pigeon-toed those together. And by doing that, it allowed the overall internal length to be longer for those columns of ammunition. And I believe it's like 1/8 of an inch longer, maybe slightly longer than that. But that eliminated any kind of issues with long match ammunition. Another goal was we didn't want it to get progressively harder to load the magazine. Everybody's loaded a drum magazine where like the last 10 rounds, you pretty much have to use a screwdriver to shove those cartridges in there because it's just too stiff. So the compression spring that we have allows sufficient room that those last rounds are nearly as easy to put in as the rest of the magazine. So you don't really discern any kind of increase in pressure till you get to like the last 5 rounds, and those are very easy to still press into the magazine. Some fun Easter eggs about our quad stack magazine that I designed into it. First is the US flag, so I got the stars and the stripes across the magazine. Second, the phrase "restricted for Patriot use only." So anybody that lived through the 90s assault weapons ban and saw all the magazines that said "restricted law enforcement and military only" will understand why I put that on there. So, but yeah, this is for Patriot use only. If somebody wants to use our QMAGs, they do have to purchase one of our lower receivers to get the wide mouth lower. But if you have a lot of 30-round magazines, you can actually still use those. So we have a magazine insert that's very easy to install that allows use of standard 30-round magazines. So after we had the magazine designed, then we designed the lower receiver to fit the magazine. And you can see it has a wide mouth lower that's wide enough to fit that in there, and it sticks out past the outside of the handguard about 1/4 inch per side. And so the width of this handguard is just 1/4 inch, so 1/2 inch wider than that handguard. Now the controls on the weapon, we want it to be familiar and the same as an AR. And so we have our mag button is in the exact same place. That's ambidextrous on both sides. The bolt release is in the same place. That's also ambidextrous on both sides. And on the right side, it's actually a lever system that you can just push up and down. And then if you want to release the bolt, you just press it down. So the form factor of the QMAG 53 in our Quattro lower is pretty much the same as a standard AR. You don't really notice you have more ammo on the gun or that it's a wider magazine. And standard reloads are facilitated just like a 30-round magazine. And so, but you have half as many reloads, which is pretty awesome. In the heat shootout, we definitely had a substantial benefit over the standard 30-round mag that Mark ran. So very cool, very fun to shoot. You have a lot of ammo and it lasts a long time. Some other unique features of the Quattro lower receiver is a flush mount sling swivel stud here by the charging handle. We also have a set screw that can be tightened back here to take any wiggle out of the upper and lower receiver. We intentionally located it there so that it would be able to be adjusted without having to remove the pistol grip. Our Quattro lower is fully compatible with all mil-spec parts, stocks, buffer tubes, triggers, and so on, push pins, all the works, with exception of our proprietary mag release buttons mechanism and our bolt stop mechanism. Dude, that's pretty controllable. You like that? Yeah, baby. Very cool. Our Infinity 16, which is the full auto rifle, is compatible with all M16, M4 parts, stock, full auto trigger packs, and upper receivers, so on and so forth. As far as the configurations that the Infinity will be available in, we haven't isolated a single configuration. We're most likely tailor that configuration for military and law enforcement orders. However, this is a pretty neat setup. So this is what we shot in the heat shootout, which we're going to post now or very soon if we haven't already. And we went to town with these rifles. So this is a 10.3 inch, essentially a Mark 18 setup. So this is an Anderson kit. So it's a pretty inexpensive kit. And at the end of the heat shoot, we ended up blowing up the buffers inside. We took the buffer tubes off, and the buffers were just totally dismantled and fell out in pieces. So it was very, very abusive. What full auto configuration would you guys do for the Infinity 16? Or if you're going to do a Quattro 15, what is your ideal build out that you guys want to put together? So tell us about them in the comments. Many of you have asked if we're going to offer the QMAGs for the bullpup rifles that we have, our Wolverine and our Sabertooth or MDR rifles. And unfortunately we can't due to design restrictions on those guns. However, if you want to learn more about those rifles, you can click this video here. Thanks for watching.